Researchers at San Francisco-based Gladstone Institutes have developed what they call a thinking microscope. It's powered by AI and meant to independently handle and analyze entire experiments at a quick pace.
ABC7 News anchor Amanda Del Castillo talked about that with Dr. Steve Finkbeiner, whose team is behind the microscope.
Tell us exactly what is the thinking microscope and how does it differ from traditional microscopes?
Yeah, well, with traditional microscopes, we depend on people to look through the microscope and to make observations on their own. What we've done with this thinking microscope is to try to take artificial intelligence, which normally we reserve for analyzing data, and put it actually in charge of running the microscope and making observations and learning from what it sees.
Okay, so when we hear AI, admittedly, like we think ChatGPT, maybe large language models, but how does this harness AI?
Yeah, well, that's actually a great segue in a way. I think the important thing is that biology actually has its own language. It doesn't use words, but it does unfold over time in a sequential way. And so we can actually harness some of the same tools that people have used to develop ChatGPT and large language models to, in a sense, learn the language of biology and then use that to see if we can change the way the sentence ends, especially when we're talking about trying to discover treatments for disease.
And I know that accuracy is a big thing. How do you track it to just make sure that it remains accurate?
Well, one great thing about science and bench science is that if the AI does generate a discovery, we can go back and verify it by hand. So we don't have to worry about some of the problems that sometimes come up with large language models where they hallucinate.
Okay. And I know that one of the benefits you say is that it takes out human bias. How?
Well, one of the issues is that humans necessarily bring their own biases to the science that's done in terms of which questions get asked and how the work gets done. One of the great things about this system is it doesn't have any of those constraints, and so it can come kind of with an open mind, so to speak, and design the experiments in a way that leads to the maximum amount of discovery. And in addition, AI has this remarkable ability to find a needle in a haystack. So in terms of really honing in on the important things and finding discoveries, it's amazing.
Yeah. And so can you talk more about how you're using it right now and what you hope to learn from it?
Absolutely. I think on the one hand, the platform could be used for a lot of different applications, but I'm a neurologist and a neuroscientist, and so I'm especially thinking about patients who suffer from Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and ALS, and so we've developed human models of those diseases based on patient stem cells, and we're applying the microscopy to those diseases right now.
Okay, and we always hear the comparison. How does the amount of work the microscope can do in one day compare with what a human can do?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's maybe a millionfold more. It's really hard actually to quantify because it does it so much faster and in such a different way.
Yeah, okay. So what excites you most about the future of AI in scientific discovery?
Well, a really big catalytic moment for me happened about 8 or 9 years ago when we were working with Google to apply deep learning to science. And we saw things in our data that humans had never seen before. And that's really exciting to me because it's taken us so long to really make headway in some of these really difficult diseases. And so I'm very hopeful that AI is going to really help us accelerate things and get to something that we can give to patients faster.
Yeah, and then so walk me back and tell me the timeline of how you and your team kind of had this idea, you executed it, and here we are now.
You know, I got the idea actually over a lunch with someone from Google where they were kind of wondering out loud if something, you know, was possible. And I was thinking, well, we could probably do that actually. And I was also inspired by Google's chess player, which they created a chess player that beat everyone in the world, just creating an AI that could learn from what it saw, which is essentially what this microscope does. And so based on that, it took a while to actually get the financial support to do it, but we eventually were successful, and here we are.
Okay, and you say here we are. I know we have a lot of questions ourselves. What about those who say AI will replace jobs, including researchers?
Well, I'm very sympathetic to that concern. And I think what I can say is two things. One is the microscope does a lot of the kind of mundane work that is really not a lot of fun for people. And so I think what it does is allows scientists to focus on the more important things about directing the direction the science goes and really helping to understand what the discoveries mean. But the second thing is I always think about patients. You know, at the end of the day, I really want to make a dent in some of these very difficult diseases, and they've waited a long time. So I think from that perspective, I think most scientists would welcome anything that would get us to the finish line faster.
Yeah.